Welcome to the Tarryn Reeves Show, the podcast for elite entrepreneurs, visionary leaders, and high-impact CEOs who are ready to grow their brand, amplify their message, and build a legacy. I'm your host, Tarryn Reeves, multiple international best-selling author, publishing strategist, and founder of Automatic Authority Publishing and Press House. Each week, we dive into powerful conversations with trailblazing entrepreneurs and changemakers who are using storytelling to scale their business and impact. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for a dose of inspiration, strategy, and the truth behind what it really takes to turn your wisdom into wealth. All right, we have got Sarah Penfold on the show today, who is a former wilderness guide turned project management professional and now a dedicated money coach who is on a mission to empower individuals to take control of their financial futures. After undergoing a profound transformation in her own relationship with money, Sarah experienced firsthand the freedom, confidence, and opportunities that come with financial clarity. Now, she's committed to helping purpose-driven individuals shift their mindset, develop smart money habits, and build lasting financial security. With a unique blend of adventure, strategy, and financial coaching, Sarah is passionate about guiding good people to become great with their money without stress, shame, or overwhelm. Sarah, welcome to the Tarryn Reeves Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. I'm excited to dive into things financial and all of that. But before we even get there, how does one become a wilderness guide to project management to finances? Tell me about the journey.
I know. It was a really interesting one. I am a university dropout multiple times, like pursued different things. Finally ended up getting my degree in kinesiology with a major in outdoor pursuits. So I joke that it was a degree in gym class with a major in camping, but that really kind of led to the wilderness guides. Yeah. The wilderness guide part of my career, which is a lot of outdoor recreation management. So I was doing guiding in the western part of Canada and then up in Alaska for a total that was probably about 8 or so years. And then I moved to Vancouver where I still live and ended up getting a job at a retailer there. They were a big outdoor retailer and found myself in the operations department opening stores. So that's when I got my project management professional designation and kind of found my niche there. And then it was in healing my own money journey that I became so passionate about helping other people. I just had so many ahas when I really dove into it. And I'm like, this needs to be talked about and taught more than it is because it's such a taboo topic. It was for me for so many years, decades. And when I finally unlocked all of it within myself, I'm like, you just feel that click when something is like, I need to do this. And I was not expecting it when it happened. I feel like it found me, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Now, finances, like you said, are still such a taboo topic, which I just find flabbergasting, really. And especially financial wellness,
Yeah.
because this is something that I know that you're very passionate about. And it's really included in conversations about health and well-being. But there's finances and then there's health and well-being, but there's never really the conversation of the two together. Yet it is one of the key factors for divorce, as an example, and has a profound effect on our mental, emotional, and then therefore our physical health in the long term. Why do you think it's been left out of the wellness conversation for so long?
Oh, it's such a good question. Before I answer that, one of the things I realized with regard to the taboo aspect of it is I knew so many, not amazing, but really intimate things about my friends, things that they had experienced that had been really challenging that they hadn't told many people about, but we still had never talked about their money and their finances. And so I realized that it was so taboo. And it's hard for me to say exactly why. I could speculate, like from all the reading that I've done, the way money has evolved over the years, the system has evolved. A lot of the things that happened with money and finances were innovation or innovative solutions to problems that existed. And some of them were well intentioned, some of them maybe not so much. But now I feel like the system has sort of capitalized on ignorance that people have. And I don't think it was initially intended, but I feel like there is there's a very definite advantage to the wealthy and the elite to kind of perpetuate these stereotypes around money, that it's hard or that it's bad or it's the root of all evil, because it keeps people from finding their power with their money and kind of staying in these old beliefs. So that's just my opinion. I can't say definitively one way or another, but that from what I've read and from what I've seen, that's kind of what I've come to feel about the whole situation.
How does someone's financial situation impact their stress levels, their relationships, and their general overall well-being?
Yeah. So I'm in Vancouver, Canada, like I said. So a lot of the stats that I reference are North America or US usually. But one of the ones that I read recently was that 72%, and I suspect this is even low because that there's a bit of lag time for these stats to become public. And a lot's happened since that stat was published. But 72% of people in the US said that their finances was a contributor to their stress. And that's astonishing to me when you think about the physical impacts that stress has on our health and our well being. And as you mentioned, it's a major cause for relational discord and all that kind of stuff. So I became really passionate about presencing finance in the wellness industry because it really isn't talked about. There's lots of talk about manifestation and creating abundance, but it's well and good. And I do believe in it to a certain extent, but I don't believe in doing it in isolation without actually doing the hard skills of looking at your numbers and getting literate. And like that's the work. So that's kind of why I have created the programs and curriculum that I have. It's marrying all of the things together, your personal relationship, as well as the really practical skills. So you're learning it all together.
Yeah, that's beautiful and so needed.
Mhm.
I know that a lot of people experience, I suppose, anxiety or even avoidance. Avoidance is probably a better word
Yeah.
when it comes to
Yeah.
money. What, in your opinion, some of the first steps that somebody can take to start improving their financial wellness to kind of overcome these? I was going to use the word blocks, but I hate that. It's so overused. These conditionings, if you like, because that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I adamantly say that the first step is looking at your numbers, like looking at the income that you make and then what your expenses are. It's simple, but it's not easy. And it's very, very
Yeah.
confrontational. And that's why I think it's people avoid it so much because really you're confronted with the decisions you've made and kind of have to come to terms with that. But really, once you do that and you see where you're at, then you can start, like, that's the jumping off point. That's when you can start making decisions and getting back into your power. Because what I see is that when people are overspending on their credit cards, I mean, the stats, I can't remember what exactly, but it's something like, especially in North America, people are spending 1.2 or like 20% more than they're earning. Like they're in this constant state of overspend. It can be really hard and it's the necessary step. So when I teach people how to do that, I'm alongside of that, I'm also teaching them literacy. So they're building their empowerment muscle as well as looking at some of these things that can be a little crunchy. And it just
Mm.
reminds me of this quote that heard so long ago, well before I started my journey. And I knew it was true when I heard it, but I didn't understand how to implement it. And the quote was that living within your means is an act of self love. And I
Mm.
feel like self care and self love have been so commercialized to like spa days and face masks and bubble baths and whatever. And not that I want to diss those things at all. I think they're important and they're often still avoidance tactics. Self care is usually the
Yes.
thing that makes you feel a little uncomfortable or is a little bit of a work to do, right? Like it's the therapy, it's going to the gym and lifting the things, it's sitting with the difficult emotion and processing. It's the real self care, but that doesn't get talked about too much again in the health and wellness and stuff.
Yeah,
Self awareness
absolutely.
industries. So yeah.
Now, you have obviously had your own journey with money, which is how you ended up where you are. In your own journey, what were the biggest mindset shifts that you had to make to transform your
Mhm.
relationship with money? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, great question. There was a couple. One is that I had to do a little digging into my familial history. So we may think that we're not taught about money because we haven't been taught the literacy pieces, like how credit scores work or how
Mhm.
investing works. But what I like to say is that we're all taught about money, and we're taught about money from our family of origin. And so,
Yeah.
what I was taught consciously or subconsciously from my family of origin, specifically my dad's side, which is farmers and the farming industry, farmers work freaking hard, like
Mhm.
physically hard. They're out in the tractors and they're out in the fields. So, at least that's what the lineage was. And I'm talking like multi generations of farmers. And so, there was a belief that I didn't consciously have. And when I uncovered it, I was like, oh, and it was that the more money I make, the harder I'm going to have to work. Like there was a direct correlation between me making more money and physical output. And so it all felt exhausting making more money. So I saw that and then I learned about the ways that I can make money without it being like without that relationship like happening or that the more work and the more money happening at the same rate. And then the other thing that I learned was that because I had a version, and I think a lot of people do, a version of this belief that money is the root of all evil. It could be that rich people are bad, or rich people are corrupt, or there's all kinds of iterations, but the core of it is that money is bad. And what I learned
Mhm.
is I had to tease apart that the system that money operates in is different than money itself. And the system is a shit show. Like, I'm not here to say that
Yeah.
it's not. There's corruption, there's
Yeah.
manipulation and everything. But money is very, very different. And
Mm.
one of the questions that I ask people when they come at me with a belief like that is I said, okay, I'm going to give you $1 million tomorrow, no string attached. Yours 100% tax free. Tell me all the things you're going to do with it. And it's usually a beautiful list of, oh, I'm going to pay off my best friend's debt. I'm going to fix my dad's vehicle. I'm going to pay off my mortgage and I'm going to travel with my friends and family. Like all of these beautiful things, right? Going to contribute to this charity or this cause that I care about. And so I say, well, what's bad about that then? If money is so bad and evil, what is bad about all these beautiful things that you're going to do? And so that really helps initiate that discussion about like teasing apart the fact that the system is different from money. And then you can focus on the money, the relationship with money specifically, and understanding the system, which I also teach, is really such an act of empowerment. So this is another third belief that I had because there was a little bit, I have a little bit of a like rebel archetype in me, right? Like F the system.
Yeah.
And so there was a part of me that was justifying my not poverty, but my financial struggle as like not engaging with the enemy, which was like the evil system. But what I learned is that by becoming literate and understanding how it worked and using it to my advantage, which in a lot of cases it's built to do, you can legally like understand the system and use your money in a way that's to your advantage. And that was actually a bigger act of protest than disengaging with it completely. And so that's why I like to say that I want to help good people get great with their money because I don't know, there's a part of me that just believes so strongly that if people who have all these beautiful intentions and ideas for how the world could be different are well resourced with money, then that could make a big change in their immediate families and their communities and their cities and on and on and on. Long-winded answer,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, well, it makes perfect sense when you word it like that. And when you stop and take time to think about your conditioned beliefs, then you can very clearly see that, to put it simply, they're stupid and unfounded,
Yeah.
realistically.
Yeah.
It's a choice to do the work, just like anything. Like if you know that you eat unhealthily, it's a choice to go to the gym, to put more healthy things on your
Mhm.
grocery list, to not buy the snack so it's not in the house so you don't eat it. If you know that you struggle with anxiety, it's a choice to whether or not you go to therapy, you take either Western medicine or herbal medicine, you do yoga, you do breath work, whatever it is, all of those things are a choice, but it starts with awareness first. Awareness
Yeah.
that I do struggle with these things. And then you have to be in enough pain with that thing that is making you unhappy in order to want to change.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing I know about humans, it's that we will not change unless we want to.
I agree. Yeah, because I've done a lot of reading on change and habits. And the thing that struck me is that there's sort of two motivators for change. Like you said, pain and discomfort or inspiration. And it's usually the former. It certainly was for me. I had
Yes.
tried a number of different things to I knew I had a problem. I knew that I needed to get my money in order. And was trying all these different things. I tried the woo, like I went full woo and signed up for, someone's little manifestation program. And I did the mantras and the writing and read the little things over and over. And don't want to discount it, but it didn't move the marker. I felt, and in the end, it
Yeah.
ended up feeling scammy.
Yeah.
And then I hired someone to help me create a system. So one of the things that was really big for me was that I was really far behind on my taxes, like 6 years, I think, 7 returns.
Yeah. Wow.
I was also midlife and
Yep.
looking down the back half of my career and having no idea what I was going to need to keep myself safe when I decided to retire. And then the third motivator for me was just feeling like, here I am, smart, I'm educated, I have a degree, I've done all this post-secondary education, but I feel really stupid when it comes to money. So that there was shame there. So I just ended up it got to the point where I was in just so much discomfort that I finally had to bite the bullet. Not that I hadn't been trying, but it's like, okay, no, I need someone seriously to like take me through step by step. And I found my mentor, and she had the three-pronged approach, right? So it was the literacy, it was the systems, and it was this EQ piece because financial
Mhm.
EQ is like that personal relationship with money, right? Like the beliefs, kind of what we've been talking about. And what I realized is I needed someone to tell me what to do. I had been some of the other supports that I had hired to help me were like just setting up systems for me, which didn't actually empower me because it wasn't helping me take control of my money. And so there's lots of coaches that are
Right.
out there that will do that. Send them your numbers, they'll do everything for you. And I don't want to knock it because I think it does work for some people. But I adamantly believe that if you're going to become as like peak empowered sort of with your money, you have to do it. I will tell you
Yeah.
exactly what you need to do, but I'm not going to do the work for you. The other thing I wanted to say, and you touched on it about choice, is this line, it's not mine, but it hit me like a ton of bricks when I heard it, was that what we're not changing, we're choosing. And it's a
Yeah.
gut punch because we don't like to think that, oh, I'm choosing to be in pain. I'm choosing to let my fitness drop. I'm choosing to like be unhealthy. You don't think like that, but it's true. And the caveat that I will say here, because I really, really have been diving into equity work. And I firmly believe that there are institutionalized structures in place that do prevent some people from getting ahead. So I don't want to discount those kind of forces that are in place. But I think there's always a place where people could look and be like, oh yeah, am I changing or am I choosing? Like there's always a place where we can look at where we are empowered inside of a bigger world that is sort of set up with these things that may or may not be designed to help us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, the nervous system, I believe, is something that is really impacted by a person's financial situation. And let's talk entrepreneurship specifically. It's like feast or famine, and not even entrepreneurship. Like people are living paycheck to paycheck. They're always behind. Like you said, they're 20% in overspend as a minimum, usually. And we're not taught this stuff at
Mhm.
schools. Like I think that is a
No.
gross mistake from our government. Like, why are we still learning, I don't know, what a cumulonimbus cloud is versus financial emotional intelligence? Or why are we learning, look, even algebra over
Yeah.
having critical conversations and your relationships. Because to me, that's bizarre. Because when you go into university level or high school, you get to choose those and you only need a certain amount of skills for your chosen career, right? Like if you're going to go into, for example, I studied radiation therapy and then I got a degree in criminology. Like I had to go right back to physics 101 and relearn algebra and all those sorts of things. And we were taught that at university. Why are we learning it in junior school and then even high school if it's not going to be relevant to your chosen career? I would much rather my kids learn financial literacy, critical conversations, healthy relationships, self-care, those sorts of things. But I mean, that's a whole different revolution in itself. But I do know that the nervous system is highly impacted by a person's financial situation. And I know this comes down to biology that you have some knowledge about. So can you explain how our biology can either help or hinder us when it comes to money?
Oh, this is such a big topic. Yeah. So we're going to start with this. I love nervous system. I love talking about the nervous system and how it impacts money. I'm going to go back to one of our discussions earlier, which was the familial, like the lineage stuff. And I like to describe it as a computer program, and that we are, if we think of our bodies, our nervous systems as a computer, our base programming is installed between like the ages of 0 and 8, arguably a little bit more or refined throughout the years, but that base program is installed when we're in our elementary school years. And there's things in that programming that just, they're there. So if we don't understand there's these base programs installed, like understanding that as an adult will help you relate to like your reactions to things, why you respond to certain things a certain way, patterns that repeat. Like there's so much to unpack about how those first years of our life impact our entire like experience of the world. I'll use myself as an example. I had certain beliefs as a child that you start to just accept as normal at a very isolated, like socially isolated teenage years. And so because of some of that, and so what happens is then I start to expect that as my normal. And it was interesting how I would almost recreate those situations to be socially isolated or to be rejected. And it wasn't until I started to really unpack and understand the root cause of it that I was like, oh, there's these things at play that are just like, they're these, default, like press play and the thing happens again. And that the more it's repeated, the more we kind of accept it as truth. And these pathways and in our belief systems and literally in our physiology and our brains, they kind of get reinforced. So what happens is when we start to unpack that, the root program is always there, but you recognize it. It's like, oh, this is me just wanting to do the thing again. I need to do something again in the moment. I'm choosing to do something different this time to create a different experience. And so we can turn the volume way down. We can temper our reactions. We can like almost train ourselves to do things a little bit different. It doesn't mean they're not always going to like rear their heads a little bit every now and then, but we start to develop these tools to circumnavigate when they start to poke up. Where it can come up with money, again, is in some of those beliefs. And I want to talk about one that I've seen so many times. And I love what you said about, though we're not taught this in school, because I adamantly believe that we should be. Because, well, I will argue actually that I do, as a former wilderness guide, yes, I like being able to recognize clouds. So cumulonimbus, that I learned. But calculus and a sine wave, like when have I used sine equations as an adult? Like never. What I would have loved to have understand as a kid is that if I put $10 away in a week or like learned that the habits of saving, which is the point that I want to make, we're not taught that. And neither was I. Actually, this is a great example, and you'll see how it reinforced to the farming family belief. So we had to contribute, my sibling and I, in the household. We had chores to do to contribute to the running of the house, cleaning, whatnot. And that was a really great skill to learn when I started living on my own, that I was always the responsible roommate doing the thing. We were given a very generous allowance as kids, more than many of my friends and peers. but we were also then expected to manage it. Like that was our money for entertainment. If I was going to the movies with my girlfriends, if I was going to the mall to buy makeup with my little girlfriends, like I had to be responsible for what I was buying because I was only getting this fixed amount of money. If I wanted more, then I would have to work more around the house, do more chores to get more money. So you can see how that subconscious belief was reinforced by that patterning. It wasn't necessarily bad, but what the piece I realized as an adult that was missing was that I wasn't taught to save any of that money. So if my parents had said to
Mm.
me, okay, here's your $20 allowance, we're going to put five of that into an RESP or an educational savings account or an investment account, like whatever it is. Of course, a kid not going to want to part with it, but the more you normalize it, the easier it will become for them as adults, in my opinion, to save. And I have an ex coworker who was taught that by someone in his family. And he bought his first condo before the age of 30 because he normalized saving. He wasn't frugal. He lived an adventurous life. He was social and engaged, but he saved money. And so he was able to have this incredible asset for himself at a relatively young age. So I think about that one a lot, right? Like the habit of saving, and we're just not taught that so often. Like if you hear the narrative, even in the culture right now, like everyone's struggling, things are tight, I don't have enough. And I'm not saying that those aren't very real for people. I think they are. And it's reinforcing this scarcity mindset. And so, coming back to what I said before, if you believe that and you think you're experiencing it, but you haven't looked at your inputs and outputs, I really have to question, like, are you 100% positive that there's not areas where you're leaking money that you just haven't looked? So you haven't even really thought about it.
Yeah. So I want to give our listeners and our viewers some practical ways that they can kind of regulate their nervous system so that they can make more empowered financial decisions. And obviously, one practical way is sitting down, looking at your numbers. Like I have a dorky spreadsheet that I fill in every single Monday for my incomings and my outgoings. So I know exactly where I'm at all times. And I have that for my
Mhm.
business and I have it like I've got an accountant for the business. I have a bookkeeper for the business and it's all run through, accounting software system, but I still
Yeah.
have my spreadsheet. So when I'm sitting here at my desk, I know this is the financial situation in the household. This is the financial situation in the business. And it's either, oh shit, we're in trouble, for a we need to reduce spending. For example, my car insurance is coming up. Okay, maybe it's time to look at comparing different plans because maybe I'm no longer on the best plan. All of these sorts of things. So, one obviously practical way is to sit down and find a system that works for you. Look at the
Yeah.
numbers. What are some practical ways that people can regulate their nervous system?
Yeah. So before I answer that question, because I think what you said is really important. So when you sit down and look at your numbers, especially when you're just getting started, it can be confronting, right? Like I've said. And so there's a misconception out there, I believe, that when we talk about being regulated, that we're like calm and chill and everything's great. And I believe that is a nervous system state. However, if you're going to sit down and look at your finances for the first time, there's probably a little bit of anxiety and there's probably a little bit of,
Yeah.
all the feels, the guilt and the shame. And I just want to say that is a normal nervous system response.
I
Mm.
don't
Yeah.
think that anxiety can be expected to go away like even after a month of doing it. Like depending on how I suppose triggered your nervous system is and your relationship with money. Like I sometimes still sit down and do the spreadsheet. I'm like, "Ooh," especially at like Christmas time and stuff like that. Like I know
Yeah.
it's coming. I know it's going to be tight, but still that system is triggered. So like you said, I think it's an unrealistic expectation that it's like, oh, well, we're all just going to be calm. You're doing the work
Yeah.
and that's the main thing.
Yeah. And I feel like understanding if you're having an appropriate reaction for the situation you're in, that is nervous system regulation. However,
Mm.
what I will say is that if you are feeling overly elevated, so it's not necessarily a scenario that people would find themselves in, but I'm going to use it to make a point. If you come home on a Friday after a long work weekend, or sorry, a long work week, you're stressed, you're hungry, you're not going to sit down and do your money at that point. That is like the worst thing, right? Because you have all this other stuff happening. And I think that's the things that we need to tease apart. So I like to sit down with my money on a Saturday morning because I've usually had a great sleep. The whole weekend is ahead of me. I still work a 9 to 5 job. So my whole weekend is ahead of me. It's when my stress is the lowest. So I have more capacity to sit down and, okay, what's happening with the money this month or this week? If there's something super acute going on, so like you're looking at your money and you get really triggered, I think to keep pushing through that can be detrimental. So just watching yourself, like, okay, I've done 15 minutes. That's what I can handle right now. I'm going to like take a 15-minute walk around the block and come back to it. Right. So just kind of making sure that we're not pushing too much into discomfort. We're keeping it like at a manageable, appropriate level for the situation. But if we're spinning too much, I think then we need to like stop associating that response with finance. Does that make sense? I feel like I wasn't quite clear there, but like I feel like there's a healthy amount of like apprehension that we can have, but there's a point at which we need to stop perpetuating the relationship between this extreme discomfort with money and actually doing it. So in those moments, I mean, it's the typical stuff, right? I call it the vagus breath, but like it's increasing your exhales by twice the length of time of your inhale to stimulate your vagus nerve, which will bring you back into your parasympathetic state. It's like literally stepping away, doing anything bilaterally, like walking is the easiest thing. So we're engaging both sides of our body, bringing our brains more into equilibrium. I do EFT tapping a lot. I really, really love that modality because it's so accessible and so powerful. If people can research emotional freedom technique or tapping, there's lots and lots of resources out there to do that. So those are a few. And I think the big takeaway for people is just the bilateral. Anything you can do that's you're stimulating both sides of your body. And a really easy one actually is to just cross your arms and tap your shoulders and take some breaths. And it might feel weird in the moment. And I just want to remind people that like it's weird because it's not normalized. Just like looking at your money regularly is not normalized. Like as we learn new things, we need to get over ourselves a little bit and try these things to just see how they're going to change the situation for us, right? It's part of, again, what we're not changing, we're choosing. So if you're going to try and change something in your life, you're going to have to learn to do new things.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for those listening who want to develop a healthier, more empowered relationship with their wealth and finances, what's one key piece of advice you would give them? What's your most powerful piece of advice?
Like step by step, one thing at a time. Any habit that we want to change, I'm sure people can relate. Diet's a great one, right? If we want to like change something about our health. Okay, next week I'm going to start going to the gym 3 times a week. I'm going to change my diet completely. I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. Like if we try and do too much at once, we're going to overwhelm ourselves and like end up back at square one. So if all you do this week is get a finance book and start listening to it, check out some finance podcasts, follow, maybe delete some cat Instagram accounts and follow some money Instagram accounts, like just start easing it into your system. And don't try and do it all in a day. One of the things that really helped me change my perspective in a number of different areas of my life is my self-perception. So the example that I use, because I'm a middle-aged woman, I'm learning all kinds of different things about how I need to take care of my body. One of which is, I need to start lifting heavy shit more often. And a year ago, I was not someone that went to the gym and lifted weights. And over this past year, I've become that. And now it's a habit. And I had a concussion actually last year. And I was kind of off everything exercise for 2 months. I was basically told, I just want you to do stretching and walking. And at the end of that time, when I was kind of given all clear to go back to the gym, it was no problem for me to pick it back up because I had the perception that I was a person who lifted weights 3 times a week. And the fact that I had this thing happen to me didn't dissuade that. And so there's a perception shift that needs to happen around, you could say, I'm someone who's good with my money. I want people to be honest with themselves. And at the beginning, it's like, I am learning to be better with my money. And the saying that like, I am learning to, I think is such a reminder that like, it's a process. I mean, I'm still on my, like, I have a learning edge with money. I may be 5 or 6 years ahead of everybody, and there's more advanced things that I'm learning, but there's always a learning edge, and to like be comfortable with that little bit of discomfort when you're on the edge of what you're choosing to learn or change in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today on all things finances and wealth and nervous system regulation. Before we wind up, we have a tradition here on the show called the book drop. And we want to know what book has either impacted you professionally or personally.
The book I love is, I listen to it at least once a year, Boundary Boss by Terry Cole. I feel
Okay,
like
I
it
not
is an
read that.
essential read. Oh, it's so good. I understood what a boundary was, but reading this book really helped me understand all the different boundaries that I was allowed to have. It's just a fantastic book, and I think it's a must read for any woman, actually, because we have a lot to learn, I feel like, in setting boundaries.
Amazing. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Taryn. It was lovely to be here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tarryn Reeves Show. If today's episode lit a fire in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story that could transform your business. If you're ready to write the book that positions you as the go-to authority in your industry, visit automaticauthority.com to find out how we can help you make it happen. Until next time, keep owning your story, leading with impact, and building a legacy.